If he will come and ask me, without mockery, to exercise my skill on behalf of all of us, I will try to exercise it, though I know very well that he believes it to be but as an idle little whirlwind that stirs the dust, that raises the dust and lets it fall again without purpose or meaning, forgetting, as the wise white men forget, that even the wind which blows the dust is the same that breathes in our nostrils, and that to it we also are as is the dust." Now I, the listener, thought for a moment or two. The words of this fighting savage Mavovo, even those of them of which I had heard only the translation, garbled and beslavered by the mean comments of the unutterable Sammy, stirred my imagination. Who was I that I should dare to judge of him and his wild, unknown gifts? Who was I that I should mock at him and by my mockery intimate that I believed him to be a fraud? Stepping through the gateway of the fence, I confronted him. "Mavovo," I said, "I have overheard your talk. I am sorry if I laughed at you in Durban. I do not understand what you call your magic. It is beyond me and may be true or may be false. Still, I shall be grateful to you if you will use your power to discover, if you can, whether Dogeetah is coming, and if so, when. Now do as it may please you. I have spoken." "And I have heard, Macumazahn, my father. To night I will call upon my Snake. Whether it will answer or what it will answer I cannot say." Well, he did call upon his Snake with due and portentous ceremony, and, according to Stephen, who was present, which I declined to be, that mystic reptile declared that Dogeetah, alias Brother John, would arrive in Beza Town precisely at sunset on the third day from that night. Now, as he had divined on Friday, according to our almanac, this meant that we might hope to see him (hope exactly described my state of mind on the matter) on the Monday evening in time for supper. "All right," I said briefly. "Please do not talk to me any more about this impious rubbish, for I want to go to sleep." Next morning early we unpacked our boxes and made a handsome selection of gifts for the King Bausi, hoping thus to soften his royal heart. It included a bale of calico, several knives, a musical box, a cheap American revolver, and a bunch of toothpicks, also several pounds of the best and most fashionable beads for his wives. This truly noble present we sent to the king by our two Mazitu servants, Tom and Jerry, who were marched off in the charge of several sentries, for I hoped that these men would talk to their compatriots and tell them what good fellows we were. Indeed, I instructed them to do so. Imagine our horror, therefore, when about an hour later, just as we were tidying ourselves up after breakfast, there appeared through the gate, not Tom and Jerry, for they had vanished, but a long line of Mazitu soldiers, each of whom carried one of the articles that we had sent. Indeed, the last of them held the bundle of toothpicks on his fuzzy head as though it were a huge faggot of wood. One by one they set them down upon the lime flooring of the verandah of the largest hut. Then their captain said solemnly: "Bausi, the Great Black One, has no need of the white men's gifts." "Indeed," I replied, for my dander was up, "then he won't get another chance at them." The men turned away without more words, and presently Babemba turned up with a company of about 50 soldiers. "The king is waiting to see you, white lords," he said in a voice of very forced jollity, "and I have come to conduct you to him." "Why would he not accept our presents?" I asked, pointing to a row of them. "Oh, that is because of Imbozwi's story of the magic shield. He said he wanted no gifts to burn his hair off. But come, come, he will explain for himself. If the elephant is kept waiting he grows angry and trumpets." "Does he?" I said. "And how many of us are to come?" "All, all, white lord. He wishes to see every one of you." "Not me, I suppose," said Sammy, who was standing close by. "I must stop to make ready the food." "Yes, you too," replied Babemba. "The king would look on the mixer of the holy drink." Well, there was no way out of it, so off we marched, as well armed as I need not say, and were instantly surrounded by the soldiers. To give an unusual note to the proceedings, I made Hans walk first, carrying on his head the rejected musical box from which flowed the touching melody of Home, Sweet Home. Then came Stephen bearing the Union Jack on a pole, then I in the midst of the hunters and accompanied by Babemba, and then the reluctant Sammy, and last of all the 2 donkeys led by Mazitus, for it seemed that the king had especially ordered that these be brought also. It was a truly striking cavalcade, the sight of which under any other circumstances would have made me laugh. Nor did it fail in its effect, for even the silent Mazitu people through whom we wended our way were moved to something like enthusiasm. Home Sweet Home they evidently thought heavenly, though perhaps the 2 donkeys attracted them most, especially when they brayed. "Where are Tom and Jerry?" I asked of Babemba. "I don't know," he answered. "I think they have been given leave to go to see their friends." Bausi is suppressing evidence in our favour, I thought to myself, and said no more. Presently we reached the gate of the royal enclosure. Here, to my dismay, the soldiers insisted on disarming us, taking away our rifles, our revolvers, even our sheath knives. In vain did I remonstrate, saying that we were not accustomed to part with these weapons. The answer was that it was not lawful for any man to appear before the king armed even with so much as a dancing stick. Mavovo and the Zulus showed signs of resisting, and for a minute I thought there was going to be a row, which of course would have ended in our massacre. For although the Mazitus feared guns very much, what could we have done against hundreds of them? I ordered him to give way, but for once he was on the point of disobeying me. Then by a happy thought I reminded him that, according to his Snake, Dogeetah was coming, and that therefore all would be well. So he submitted with an ill grace, and we saw our precious guns borne off we knew not where. Then the Mazitu soldiers piled their spears and bows at the gate of the kraal, and we proceeded with only the Union Jack and the musical box, which was now discoursing "Britannia rules the waves." Across the open space we marched to where several broad-leaved trees grew in front of a large native house. Not far from the door of this house a fat, middle-aged and angry-looking man was seated on a stool, naked except for a moocha of cat-skins about his loins and a string of large blue beads around his neck. "Bausi, the king," whispered Babemba. At his side squatted a little hunchbacked figure, in whom I had no difficulty in recognizing Imbozwi, although he had painted his scorched scalp white with vermilion spots and adorned his snub nose with a purple tip, his dress of ceremony, I presume. Round and behind there were a number of silent councillors. At some signal, or on reaching a given spot, all the soldiers, including old Babemba, fell upon their hands and knees and began to crawl. They wanted us to do the same, but here I drew the line, feeling that if once we crawled we must always crawl. So at my word we advanced upright, but with slow steps, in the midst of all this wriggling humanity, and at length found ourselves in the august presence of Bausi, the beautiful Black One, King of the Mazitu. End of chapter 9.